When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a vet, actually. Yeah, when I was a child and teenager. And then I realised that science wasn't really my thing, so music was always very strong for me. And as a cellist, I went to study at Birmingham Conservatoire for my undergrad. And then after a couple of years, I realised how much I had enjoyed doing some composition work that we had to do. And so I took a kind of mad leap and changed course. And repeated a year. So I studied for 3 years as a composer in Birmingham. And then I went to the Royal College to do my Masters for 2 years. Yeah, Mark Anthony Turnage was a huge influence to me. I came across his music in about my second year at Birmingham, and I was just blown away by it, really amazed by the possibilities of what someone can achieve through writing for orchestra particularly. At that point I didn't know much contemporary music because as a cellist I had played a lot of orchestral repertoire, and when I changed to study composition then suddenly the doors were wide open to all sorts of music and contemporary music and world music, and many influences came flooding in. So yeah, hearing Mark's music for the first time really blew me away, and that really led me on a journey to discover many more contemporary composers who now are part of my regular listening, and composers who I feel very inspired by regularly. But at that point, all of that music was very new to me. I find probably the biggest challenge is balancing the different aspects of your career. So you need to be a composer and you need to dedicate enough time and concentration to doing that, but you also need to manage your own career and look for the opportunities and meet people and you know, network with ensembles and musicians and all these different elements, as well as doing your tax return and all these things, kind of, you know, pour into really fill your career with more than just being a composer. So I think one of the biggest challenges for me is balancing that and make sure I spend enough dedicated time to composing. Rather than describing my style necessarily, I would say the things that are important to me as a composer. And one of the main things that drives me while I'm composing is having some kind of narrative through the piece. And that doesn't mean it's an extra musical narrative or a story or something, but it's some kind of journey that leads you from the beginning of the piece to the end of the piece. And I feel that having that thread through a piece and making sure that's very consistent is very important to me, and it helps me as well as a composer. I would have really liked to invite Maya Angelou to a dinner party. I think she was an incredible, inspirational woman. Also Marilyn Monroe, I would have really liked to meet her. Michelle Obama would definitely be on my list as well. I think she would add a lot of conversation to the dinner party. And then taking a slightly different path, I think someone like Mother Teresa would be on my list, and probably, to put her in good company, Florence Nightingale. I think in history, they are the people that I would have loved to meet, you know. The biggest thing I would say is just keep writing and write as much as possible and find every opportunity possible to hear your music. So make friends with performers and give your music to them and work with them, collaborate, because I think that's the most important thing, just to keep hearing what you're writing, because that's really such an important way to develop. Every performance you hear of a piece is different often. So it's wonderful to hear different musicians' interpretation of your music, and of course that changes every time, and sometimes performers particularly grasp what you had in your mind, and sometimes it's successful, but it's not so exactly what you had in mind. So it can be very exciting to hear different performances of the same piece. So that's why I think it's so important to keep hearing your music and be able to have that as a reference for your own development as well.